Right, guys, welcome back to Breakout. I don't know why I do that. Right, guys, welcome
Wow,
back to Breakout.
fucking
Right,
old
guys,
dad
well,
shit.
right, guys, welcome back to Breakout the Apex. It's myself, Graham, and BT. We are here to give you the race review of the Spanish GP in 2023. It was a great race, was very exciting, loads of overtakes, probably more than I've seen in ages in Spain. But before we get into all of that fun stuff, BT, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Quite cold in Cape Town. Had a good weekend, relaxing. Done a bit of socializing on Saturday, but yeah, we're all good. And yourself?
I'm good. My socializing is pretty much sitting on the couch with my kids watching cartoons because
Mhm.
that's
That's a
father
good
life.
problem.
That's father life. But it
Hmm.
was fun. I enjoy it. I won't swap it for anything. I love my children and my wife. So really great weekend as well.
Oh,
Great race. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It was a great race. I thoroughly enjoyed this weekend as a whole. Let's just say qualifying was absolutely ridiculous. It threw me off completely. I mean, at the
yeah.
end of qualifying, I was kind of like, I just sat there and I was just looked and I was just kind of like, I don't know what I just witnessed. Like I wasn't really sure what
And
was
and I
going
was
on.
and I was texting you. I was texting you that day,
Yeah,
and I was asking like, "What's happening?" And
like
you were
what's
so
going on?
confused. Like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah,
what do
you
you
were like,
mean?
what's
I'm like,
going?
did you
You
just
like
watch? When you just yeah.
like I don't know what's going on. What the flip is going on here? Like it was absolutely mental. Everybody was out of position, but you know what? It was great and it made for a great race. Let's just highlight the fact we haven't had a good race in Spain since probably 2013 when Alonso won the last time there. And let's be honest. I mean, some people have said 2021, but that's the exception to the rule for anything in 2021. So that doesn't
Yeah.
count. But any other year has been quite boring. I mean, I've been saying for the last couple of weeks now or months now, if they're going to change a race for Kyalami, don't get rid of Spa, rather get rid of Spain because Spain has offered us nothing. I still won't change my mind after this. I still think, but the track layout, the new track layout definitely worked. Mercedes having those upgrades definitely threw in a span in the works because I think it brought them closer to Ferrari and Aston Martin, which made that a little bit more exciting. Um,
Hmm.
Obviously, Red Bulls were still 24 seconds up the road, but we'll get into that. We'll get into all of this. We'll get into all of these things in a bit. Before we do that, let's just have a little bit of fun um, and get into our Sign Reserve Fire. If you don't know what Sign Reserve Fire is, it's basically Shag, Marry, Kill, just in our fun. Well, fun for us, but you might find it boring. But it's just in F1 terms. But it's basically Shag, Marry, Kill. So Sign, Reserve, or Fire. Sign would be your driver, reserve would be a reserve driver, fire would be get out. BT, are you
Hmm.
ready?
Ever ready? Ever ready? Let's go.
Ever ready batteries? Are you power? Okay, never mind. That's a flow joke. Let's move on. Sign reserve fire, BT. Sign reserve fire. Let's go for the Spanish Grand Prix podium with the Max, Lewis, and George. Hit me,
I just
baby,
had
one
to.
more time. Yeah, of course. Go for
Okay.
it.
So, Stein, 7-time world champion. Reserve is the Flying Dutchman, and as you say, fire the whining British guy that's called Russell.
First
Yeah,
of all,
that's mine.
first of all, I said nothing about him being British. Do not get me in trouble. I said
I'm
absolutely
trying to do
nothing.
that.
I said nothing
I'm
about
trying
him
to
being
do that.
British. I
You say
said
a lot of things about Russell, by the way.
I said Russell just whinges a lot and he doesn't respect his place. I did say nothing
He's a
about him.
whiny. You said he's a whiny. He's a small child. That's
Yes,
what you said.
he is, and that's fine. But don't add the word British in there. I ain't like that's just you're gonna get me in trouble here. Anyways, I like your pick. I'm gonna take your pick too. And I know there's a couple people on the other side saying Lewis over Max, blah blah. You're a Red Bull fan, Graham. Why? Well, it's simple. Lewis is a 7-time world champion, and Max isn't. Max will get there, and in a
Oh,
couple of years we'll do this one again. And in a couple of years, I'll probably choose Max. I
I
do
wouldn't,
think
but okay.
But I do think Max is the better driver in the sense of the mentality, the aggression, and so on and so on. But at the end of the day, you can't disrespect a 7-time world champion who's proved himself in the sport. He's still super quick and he's still doing fairly well with the machine that he has.
I think correct yourself by saying at this point now is a better driver. Because now you could confuse people by saying he's the better driver, and we're talking about the whole.
Oh no, for sure. No, well, look, this is the Max Verstappen era. Let's be honest. It's the combination. Cool. It's the combination of the driver and the machine. You know what I mean? This is the Max era. It's the Max era, and it's not just Max. It's his car as well. Put them in equal cars. Who knows? Who knows what might happen? Let's be honest. Put them in equal cars, and we may have a really good season. That I can tell you. But who knows? At the current moment, definitely the better driver, but also he's in a better place. He's happy. He's less demotivated. He's got a car that's pushing him. He's got a car that just wins easily with him behind it. I don't take anything away from him. I'm a Max fan. I'm a Red Bull fan. Love him. Think he's one of the better drivers. And I think he's got the potential to be in the GOAT bracket at some point. But for now, Lewis is still a 7-time world champion. So I'm going to take him. I'm going to reserve Max because when he retires, Max will be the perfect person to take over. And then George can go home and whine to his mom that he got fired because, yeah, he's just a bit of a mommy's boy. Let's be honest.
There we go.
Governor George Russell. Blimey, Governor. All right. I don't know if that's racist or not. I'm really sorry if it is. But anyway, okay. Let's move on, man. Let's move on. Look, I'm gonna get in trouble here. Let's move on. All right, guys. Listen. I gotta let you guys know because I didn't let you know at the beginning. But we are on TikTok. We are on Facebook. We are on TikTok and we are on Spotify and we are on YouTube. We really, wherever you're watching this, it doesn't actually matter. But wherever you are watching this, please hit the subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. Give us a like, a thumbs up, whatever you want to call it. Pop a message in the comments. Let us know what you think. If you're on Spotify, pop us a 5-star review. I promise I'm worthy of it. BT's only about a 3.5, but he's working on it. But just pop us a 5-star review. That would be really highly appreciated. Really, really, really much. I don't know if that made any sense, like in the English term, but I'm sure you guys know what I'm trying to say. Let's move on to another fun segment that we're going to cover before we get into the real reason why we're actually here to speak about the Spanish GP. This segment is about the Spanish GP, but basically it's called Top 3. And what we do is we each give our top 3, and then we sort of debate to chop and change and see how we can come to an agreement. So, BT, I'm going to go first. Before I give you my top 3, I did not put this person in my top 3, but I want to give him a special mention. Junior Stroll, Mr. Lance Stroll. Yeah, he had a good race. He did the best he could in the machine that he had. And I think the critics that had him since Monaco were put to rest and put to sleep. So good riddance to them. And I hope that they have a really good nap. Because Stroll proved me right once again. I just wished he'd proved me right a bit more consistently. Because I keep saying he's a very underrated driver. I really wished he would prove me right more consistently, but it is what it is. I think still on a day, he's definitely underrated, but I am starting to get it. I'm starting to sort of understand the idea of he needs to get more consistent before we can say he's really underrated. But in any case, that's just a special mention. To get into the top 3, I'm going to go with Perez, Lewis, and George. And I don't know what this is going to do, but give me yours.
Okay, so I went with Bottas, Stroll, and Alonso.
I'm done, bro.
I went to the same selection. I'm done. I'm joking. I went to the same selection as you. Funny enough, that's our first one. This was actually jot that down actually. That every time we get the same selection, how many times we can actually do it. But yeah, we have the same selection. I'm happy with
You
that as
shouldn't
well.
play with my heart like that, eh? Because first of all, you picking
We've
Stroll
done
in
it.
the top three, would have been amazing. Second of all, Bottas doesn't deserve to be in the top three, in the top 10 of anything right now. Let's be real. Anyways,
honest.
I can't believe, I honestly can't believe that we've picked the same top three. It's the first time ever. And I got to be very honest with you. When I picked this top three, I was thinking I was going to be way off from what you had. Because honestly, and the fact that we got it in the same order, my thinking behind it is just that Perez, in my opinion, was the driver of the day. But obviously, we know driver of the day is somewhat of a popularity contest, and obviously Lewis got it. But I think Perez did a lot of work. He did a lot of work to get to where he was. And maybe a few more laps and he would have probably been able to catch George. George obviously got extremely lucky in the beginning. Had he not got that lucky, don't think that Perez would have struggled to get him. I think Perez probably would have ended up passing him pretty easily. And then the same goes for Lewis. Lewis wasn't really challenged. He was pretty well established in second position and he wasn't really challenged. And so with that being said, you got to say, Lewis had a great drive, and I really 100% agree that he was deserving of a driver of the day. But on this specific day, I think that Perez did do a lot more. But in any case, it is what it is. That's just the thinking behind it, and that's why I've put Perez at number one. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I mean, I'm also in the same boat as you. We do have same selection. I mean, Perez had an awful weekend in Monaco. So he had to redeem himself at some point or in some way. Qualifying didn't start off very well. I was quite concerned that we might be having one of those weekends again. But he does have the fast car. But he drove and he looked quick and he looked very focused. Those mistakes he had in Monaco were not there. He cleaned up everything. So he had a great race. I mean, he had a great race. That's all I can say. He proved to the team that he didn't get points the previous race, and this race was for him a must for him to get points for the team. So yeah,
100%.
In terms of in terms of Merc and Hamilton and Russell, I mean, that car's looking good. That car's looking good, to be honest with you. I was more impressed with Russell. The overtakes that he done, he was more aggressive. He was on it. He was on the limit. Quite surprised me in a way, to be honest with you. I see why he's in that car. He has a lot of potential to also drive a car the way, how can I say, how you say it, to drive the car off its wheels, basically, in that nutshell.
Yeah.
And that's what he done in that Spanish Grand Prix. He done exactly that. And the overtakes were sublime. And I really enjoyed watching him race, to be honest with you. I was more focused on them than those damn Ferraris. But yeah.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, we'll get into it more with Mercedes. I've got a couple things to pull out of the bag. I've got a couple of rabbits that I can pull out of the hat today, just for a bit of fun. But yeah, I think while we're on it, we might as well just. George was definitely on it. Let's be honest. He was on it on the radio. He was on it on the track. He was on it all over the place. I will say that he was quite a good watch this weekend. Just from an entertainment point of view, a very good watch. From the radio messages to the racing to everything, it was quite entertaining. It's definitely better than the whining George, but anyways, we'll get into that. Cool. So let's move on to the race review, the actual race review, which people are that's probably why they're here. Let's be honest. So if they haven't skipped to this part and you listen to all the garbage before this, I do apologize. But we do just want to have a bit of fun as well. So, but before we get into the actual race review, let's just do our one sentence race caption. So basically, that's just one sentence that we give you to describe what we think about the race. Well, not describe the race, but anything that stood out to us. So I went first on the top three. So BT, it's your turn to go first. So go for it.
Okay, mine is plain and simple. I said the Merc party. It was the Merc party. That's what was happening in that race. Merck was just showing off.
Right.
Yes, they're quite far from Red Bull, but I kind of hate this. I can't say stigma, but this thing before the season started where and this now is about Merck, but I'm going to involve Ferrari in this. I hate the fact that people
Always.
had high regard that Ferrari was going to be fast this year. I didn't
Mm.
even believe that. And sad enough, Ferrari are probably the fourth fastest team on the grid now.
Yeah.
I'm saying Merck has gone past them with all the upgrades they have made this weekend. So mine is plain and simple. It's the
Mm.
Mark party. The DJ was Hamilton, and the dancer was Russell, and they looked good throughout the whole weekend. The pace
Yeah.
was good. The upgrades were working. The
Yeah.
teamwork was fantastic. We saw that Russell had some witty jokes in him, and
Yeah.
also kind of predicting rain, but his helmet was sweaty. That was quite embarrassing. But yeah, overall, I think
Is
Merck
it just
made the
me that
actual
has is it just me that's experiencing rain at turn 5? It's just you, George.
I laughed. I
Oh, it
laughed when
must
I
be
heard
the
that.
sweat. It
Yeah,
must be the
but I
sweat.
mean, Merck made that race. To be honest with you, if
Yeah,
without
they
Merck
did.
performing like that,
They
I
did.
don't think that race was going to be quite interesting. So they
Mm.
made that race very interesting, very
Well,
entertaining, as you said as well.
there was a
I
lot of other
mean,
factors. There
let's
was a lot
just
of other things, but
yeah,
definitely
I
they were the
mean,
main part. They were definitely the main characters
yeah,
of the show. They were the main characters of the
yeah.
show.
I mean, let's be fair. We haven't given Merck their flowers yet this season, so it's about
Yeah,
time we do. From where
shame.
they
I
started
mean,
and where they are now, it's fantastic. Lewis Hamilton was
yeah,
consistent, was focused, or as a team player was quite happy with the podiums,
yeah,
or the team got and the points. So fantastic weekend for Merck.
yeah. There we go. We give Mercedes a couple tulips and a rose.
Yeah,
Cool. So we'll get more into Mercedes. There's a few more things I'd like to highlight about Mercedes. Obviously, this is not the main part of the show. We'll get into that in a bit. So I'm going to give you my one sentence race caption, which is pretty similar. It's welcome back Mercedes, and that just basically goes to the fact that, and first of all, I would just like to clear up, Spain is a track that does actually suit Mercedes in the previous years. Even last year when they didn't have a good car,
yes,
they did still do well.
yeah,
So I've got to clear up the fact that I'm not jumping on this hype train now, saying, oh, Mercedes is back. First of all, they're still 24 seconds off Red Bull. Now, I'm a Red Bull fan,
yes.
but I'm not sure I really enjoy the whole dominant thing, just because it's kind of pointless for me to sit and watch a race to support a team that's 20 seconds ahead, because there's nothing really for me to watch. So I found myself this season becoming, I mean, I'm sure you've noticed, I've become such a neutral in the sport that I'm cheering for Mercedes to do well, and I'm cheering for Ferrari to do well, and I want Fernando to win. And like I've become such a neutral in the sport because it's the only way to keep me interested, because I'm not finding much satisfaction in, I don't know how Mercedes fans did this for 8 years. It boggles my mind. I don't get what is the pleasure in it. Like, I love the winning. I love it. I'm not going to say I don't. I love that. It's good for banter as well. It's good to say that, everybody's trash and my team is legit, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really make it exciting to watch. It's just good for banter. So, I'm not really jumping on that hype train. Obviously, we still got to go through Canada. We've still got to go through another one or two other different types of tracks to see if Mercedes really are back. But I'm saying,
Yeah.
welcome back, Mercedes, because yesterday, because we are a day later, we're doing this a day later, but yesterday was when the race was. They showed the old school Mercedes. I say old school, it's very recent. They showed Mercedes as Mercedes. Everything was on point, except for Lewis and George having a little bit of a kiss in qualifying. I say little.
Yeah,
It was
of
more
course.
like a full-on French kiss. Yeah. Anyways, I'm not gonna. Okay, let's. The point is, besides that, To be fair as well, it's not like that actually. I mean, you would expect, I mean, if that was Checo and Max, they'd be fighting for the rest of the weekend, you know. But the
Yeah.
two of them seemed to get over that pretty quickly, and they were pretty happy, and that was that. They showed a lot of grit, they showed a lot of pace, they showed a lot of fight. They were having fun, and I think this is what a lot of people seem to miss. When I was posting about Mercedes being back, a lot of people are saying, how are they back? They're still 20 seconds off, blah, blah, blah. But I think what people are missing is that I'm not talking about them back to winning. I'm talking about them being back as a team. You know, this team has looked so demotivated and so just not there. You know, whereas they looked like the outfit that they have been for a long time. And it was
They
good
look
to
like
see.
McLaren at the moment. They were looking like McLaren.
No, there
How
wasn't that
McLaren
bad. No,
is
no,
at the
no, no.
moment.
Don't hurt Mercedes fans like that. All right. It really wasn't that bad. Mercedes fans, I don't agree with what Pete said. I don't condone this behavior. That is his words and his words only. I do not condone this nonsense. Okay. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is I just think that they are a team that still deserves the respect. You know, I think they are a team that still deserves to be called one of the best teams on the grid, because they truly are. You know, they just didn't get the car right, but everything else they still do right. Their pits have been good most of the time. Their strategies have been okay. It's not like they've made any massive blunders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just that the car hasn't been good, which has demotivated the drivers a bit, and it's just a bit of it's just demotivated them a little bit, so that they sort of just haven't been enjoying their time, which is very difficult. I mean, we've seen it with Daniel Ricciardo, where that demotivation really can affect your driving. It really affects you, and I feel like Norris is going through that now too. But we'll get into Norris as well, anyways. But okay, cool. Let's move into the race review while we're on it. Right. Okay. Let's get into the actual show. The one thing that everybody came here for, I guess that's why you're all here. So let's let's get into it. Let's talk about the actual race and the events of the race, and to see what happened. Before we move on, before we start with that, I would just like to say that if nobody noticed, there was a change to the track, and this change definitely seemed to make a big difference. I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely one of the skeptics at the start, at the beginning of the year, when they said this was going to change. I was among the thousands and thousands of people that were like, how is that going to make a difference? Turns out it did. Whether that was because of Mercedes's upgrades or the downfall of certain other teams, whether, you know, whatever the factor was, it could have been due to any other factor. Maybe next year it's boring again and it didn't work. Who knows? But specifically for this race, it definitely worked regardless. So if you didn't know, you know now. But let's get into it. So I'm gonna start off just straight off the bat. I think we just get Red Bull out of the way, because I mean, let's be honest, it's literally
it's
like
getting boring.
It's getting boring.
That's what
it's like it's the same thing over and over again. You know, I mean, it was so boring that Max was exceeding track limits for fun. The guy was like, he was eating candy out of a packet. He was just kind of like, every lap he was just, I'll have one sweet, thank you. Next lap I'll take another sweet, you know. And he was just like, whatever, man, what ifs. And when GP said to him, okay, Max, it's time to bring the car home now, in the white lines preferably, I must say I had a bit of a chuckle. I did have a bit of a chuckle. I thought that was quite cheeky. It was quite cheeky of him, but Christian Horner said it quite well at the end of the race. He said those two are like a married couple. They love each other, but they like having good digs at each other. And it's good to see that guys have that kind of relationship. Actually, it works very well for the type of sport. You know, considering the adrenaline that they go through, I think, you know, it's good what they have. But the point of the story is, Max was clearly having fun out there. Completely oblivious to anything that was really happening. He was just in his zone, man. He didn't even realize he was going over the limits here. But luckily for him, there was no yellow cards. What are we talking about? Soccer? F1, sorry. Okay, there was no yellow flags, fortunately, and he didn't end up getting the a penalty at all, fortunately. So for him,
Yeah.
it worked out just fine. But let's just highlight there are two things I would like to talk about. First of all, we are going to talk about Perez's race because I think that was something worth talking about. And second of all, I'd just like to say, that Red Bull are now on 99 wins. So they one more win away from their century. So that's quite interesting, quite impressive. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of teams out there. I mean, geez, McLaren has more than 100 wins. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, of course.
anyways, it's quite an impressive feat to have. Not feet as in the feet that you walk on, feet as in feature. You know what I mean? Sorry. My bad.
Yeah, you're on
sorry,
it today.
sorry guys. I apologize for that. Anyways, let's move on. All right, so let's get into Perez. Now, the reason why I want to get into Perez is because I've got some stats. I've got some fun stats to show you guys. And I want to talk about them. So first of all, I would like to talk about Max's stats quickly. I got a race report for Max here. And Max started off in the first, say, 20 laps in the 120s, 1 minute 20, every lap. Every now and again, dropped into the 119. He ended the race in the last 10 laps, going 117, 117, 117, 117, 117, 118, which I assume he was busy building up some battery because the lap after that, 163, and then 117, 117. So he was absolutely blitzing that final stint of his. And I just don't know, this guy is he's really just a robot of some sort. He's so consistent with his times. It's actually unbelievable. But what is more interesting is Sergio. Now I've got a comparison here for George and Sergio. And the reason why I have this is because I want to just highlight the fact that I believe Sergio had every bit of a chance to beat George today, and obviously fell short. But if you consider the fact that George skipped 5 places in the beginning by going through the forest, these stats are quite interesting because I can tell you that about 80% of the laps, Sergio was quicker than George by quite a margin. And I found this to be quite interesting. So if I want to just highlight the last, say, 15 laps. The last 15 laps after Sergio made his last pit stop. He then took 3 seconds out of George in 2 laps. He then took a further 8/10 and a further 3/10 out of George in another 2 laps. So that's basically another second and a bit. He then took another 9/10 and another 8/10, which is almost 2/10. My goodness, my maths is so bad. That's almost 2 seconds. And then after that, it was again 5/10. And then George brought it back a little bit. And then Perez went again 4/10, 3/10, and then 8/10, 1 second, 6/10. So in that last stint, Sergio was absolutely blitzing it against George. And it just makes me think that, if George didn't have that 5 place sort of jump at the beginning, Perez definitely would have beaten him. So I think I don't want to take too much away from George. I do think he did extremely well. But I do think that, FIA, although they did a good job again this weekend, no major issues, I do think that the stewards needed they didn't need to intervene. What George did was legal. Let's just get that out the way. It was legal. The reason for the escape route is because that's the route they need to take if they get pushed off. It was legal, but I definitely think they're going to have to rethink that escape route because you shouldn't be able to gain such an advantage. I mean, he got 5 places, and if you consider where the race ended in terms of the Perez versus George fight, let's think about it like this, right? If Mercedes were in the fight, Max beating George, then Perez, Max beating Lewis, and then George and Perez have to fight each other. You know, it's the championship. You obviously want to be ahead, you know. So in the sense that Perez should have been ahead or could have been ahead of George, but he wasn't because of that 5th place jump. If it weren't for that 5th place jump, I'm pretty certain Perez was going to beat him. So I'm not taking anything away from George. I just want to say Perez had an extremely good race. Just looking at this comparison table and just in general, his stats looked extremely good for the race. And well done to him. That's all I want to say.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Ryan, for that. Only thing I would like to add on in terms of what you just said is which tire was George in and which tire was Perez in, and how many laps did George put before Perez, or it was the other way around? Because I'm trying to think now which tires were the fresh. Obviously, Perez had the fresher tires than George, right?
At the end, yes, in the last 10 laps, he went on to softs. They both were on softs. Okay, they actually had different strategies the entire race through. The difference, though, is that Perez had a stint on the hards and was still doing better.
Okay.
Whereas Russell went onto the medium. So Russell went soft, medium, soft. Perez went medium, hard, soft.
Okay.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm looking at this now, and I looked at this the other day. I'm seeing a lot of drivers here that did less laps on the hards than they did on the mediums and the softs. So I wonder if that wasn't maybe because the hards weren't working for them or whatever the case may be. But it definitely looked like it was one of those tires that didn't maybe perform well, because a lot of drivers seem to. I mean, most of these drivers did more laps on mediums than on hards, which is quite interesting. But again, I'll just highlight the fact that this was amazing. I love the fact that there was so many different strategies, and it was extremely difficult to keep up with. I've got to put that out there. I was so confused. I had no clue who was doing what.
Yeah.
And you look at the timing sheets and you think Alonso's up at 4th again, and you think, oh, okay, whoa, okay, cool, this is legit. And then all of a sudden he's back down to 10th, and you kind of like, what is going on here? Like, it was very confusing. I will be honest, but it kept you thinking. It kept you interested. Until the end of the race, you were interested into what was happening. You had no clue what was going on, but you wanted to figure it out. So this was really good.
Yeah, I mean, it was like one of those races where strategy was key. That's the way I looked at it.
100%.
Like, if you had a horrible strategy, it will tell on which position you land up at the end of the race. So it was just one of those races. And just talking about Red Bull, I'm going to give Verstappen his flowers. I mean, for him to have a fast car like that and still stay focused and still stay motivated, that's amazing. And that's the only nice thing I'll ever say for Verstappen. That's the only nice thing I'll ever say. But
why?
That's what I've
the only nice
seen
thing?
lately. No, you know. But anyway, kudos to him with that. He's staying focused. He's staying in there. He wants to win this championship.
Yeah.
And that's all, basically, in terms of where he is at the moment. Perez had a fantastic race, and that's all I can say.
I just think with Max, I just think that with Max, it's not I'm not sure if it's a motivation or what it is, but he is just so in tune with winning. He's like Alonso in a way, well, the old Alonso, but he's just so in tune with winning that he's just on it all the time. He's just on it. And it doesn't matter whether he gets to race somebody or whether he's 20 seconds ahead every race. He is just pushing that car to the limit. It's almost like he just enjoys driving. Like, he doesn't care about the racing. He just enjoys driving. He loves racing. He enjoys the racing. But more so than the racing, he just enjoys the driving, because that's all he's doing right now. Let's be honest. He's not racing. He's just driving. He's just driving bloody fast. And I mean, literally his only challenge is keeping in between the white lines, which arguably he struggled with this weekend. But again, he could have been doing it for fun. Who knows? Anyways, I mean, that's all I have on that's all I have on Red Bull. I don't think there's much more to say. Let's move on. I think let's get into Merck. While at the end of the day, they were the second best team, so we might as well jump onto them. A very, very interesting race for them. Very, very fun for us. I think Merck brought a lot of the fun to us. I really hope that this is a welcome back Mercedes. I really hope that come Canada, we see Mercedes again pushing it. And the reason why I say that is, as a Red Bull fan, I'll probably get a lot of people saying, why would you wish that? First of all, I love Formula One. I'm not a Lewis hater. I'm not a Mercedes hater. I'm a Red Bull fan, but I love Formula One, and I'm allowed to appreciate other teams doing well. So let me do that. And I think at the end of the day, we all as fans should appreciate and respect other teams, because at the end of the day, that's what Formula One's all about. And I think with Mercedes specifically, the reason why I particularly want them to do well is because I know that they're the type of outfit that if they are there, they have the mentality to carry through. They have the mentality to take the fight. Look, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. They're still 24 seconds off the pace. I mean, they're still way, way off. But in terms of us having a little bit of a fight, at least if they are closer up front now, we've got Ferrari, Mercedes, and Aston Martin. Sorry, let me rephrase it. We've got Aston Martin and Mercedes that can fight each other.
Thank you.
But on a good day, Ferrari's there too, and then it's a decent fight, and then at least you see, midfield cars, more action from. Think about it. Let's think about this. And Crofty's said this a couple of times, and I've seen this a couple of times on other podcasts as well, and it's so true. Take Red Bull out of this. Take Red Bull out of this championship, and we've got a flippin' good championship on our hands. Take Red Bull out of the picture, and we've got an amazing championship on our hands this year. So at the end of the day, that's what I'm doing. At the end of the day, as a Red Bull fan, I don't even watch Red Bull anymore, because I'm more interested in the second to last, because it's so close that it's quite interesting and it's quite good to see what's happening there. So kudos to Merck. I'm very happy to see them fighting, and I really hope come Canada that they are truly back, and that it works for them there as well. You can see the outfit was good this weekend. Everybody was happy. Toto was cheerful. Lewis was cheerful. Russell wasn't moaning. Shortcut Russell is his name. I dubbed him Shortcut Russell in my 60-second review for the Spanish GP. Some cheeky comments on the did you see his cheeky comment on the radio when he said when his engineer said to him, solid overtake, George, and he said just solid. I thought that was quite cheeky, but I thought that was quite good. I love that kind of banter, because it's cheeky, it's very Daniel Ricciardo-esque, because that's what you saw with him, and that's always entertaining. That whether you love him or hating, it's always entertaining to see stuff like that. So very well done to Russell. He was an extremely entertaining person this weekend. I won't say Hamilton was entertaining, because he was just there, but extremely good and did extremely well, and very happy to see him happy, because we need happy Lewis, otherwise Mercedes go nowhere. Did you know Max and Hamilton have just shared their 35th 1-2?
Oh wow,
that's a lot. That's a lot of 1-2s, and if I'm not mistaken, that could be one of, if not the highest record, if not the record, they're very close to a record of being 1-2 the most times in the history of the sport. That's quite wild to think about. Max is fairly new to the sport. Lewis and Max has only been racing together for like 3 or 4 years. You know what I mean? So that's quite interesting. But yeah, I don't have much more to add. I think Mercedes really good. Well done. Very, very happy to see them sort of back, if you want to call it, like as an outfit, as a happy cup. I almost said happy couple. I don't know where I was going with that, but as a happy team, that's what I meant to say. And even after the qualifying incident, they still seem to be pretty happy with each other and pretty cheerful with each other, the two Mercedes drivers. So relationship still going strong between them two, which I honestly didn't think was going to. I thought they would have blown up. Maybe it will still come, but for now they still keeping their heads down and working together. So yeah, I don't have much more to add. Well done, Mercedes.
yeah, I mean, one word from me is progress. They were looking good,
Exactly.
and the only way they can try to maybe beat Aston Martin for that second place in the constructors is to perform the way they perform in this race. So
Yeah.
everything is looking good. Happy for them. They were quite entertaining. Car looked great. And it was amazing that they overcame that situation in qualifying and still managed to perform on the Sunday. So that was
Yeah.
quite cool from them. And yeah, I'm happy with them
Yeah.
and all the best.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. By the way, did you notice that Max and Lewis and George all seemed pretty happy chappy with each other on the podium?
Mm,
They were spraying each other and hugging each other, and they were chatting lekker. And I just found that to be quite an interesting thing to say, because if you think about it, Lewis and Max, the whole thing. And then George and Max, which recently, the whole thing. So
mhm.
um it was quite good to see them. I mean, look, to be honest, I'm going to be honest with you. I think the media blew everything out of proportion with the whole Max Lewis thing. I don't think Max and Lewis ever really sort of like hated each other. I do think that things got toxic, but I don't think it was between them. I think it was more between fans on fans because of the media and the way the media portrayed things. But I think the two of them have always still respected each other. I mean, you've still seen the odd fist pump here and there, and they obviously had their differences and they spoke them out as well. So I'm not surprised. I'm not too surprised to see them getting along, but I was surprised to see sort of Russell and Max having good chats and getting along, and it was quite interesting. Anyways, let's move on
You must understand
to
Formula One sells the product as a rivalry based thing. So
yeah,
it works for Formula One as a sport and how to
yeah,
market it as well. So of course the drivers don't hate each other. It's just that
yeah,
it happens to appear that way to sell
yeah.
the product and to put that thing on Netflix and all that stuff. So yeah, but let's move on.
Yeah, that's fair. But I do think that some narratives are a little bit wayward and forced, and just they pick the wrong guy to be the villain, I think, in many cases. But it is
It
it
was
is
like
what it is.
it was a Nicky Lauda and James Hunt. They played it like they hated each other, but they were actual friends
Oh, they actually loved each
behind
other.
the
Yeah.
scenes.
I watched that
Yeah.
race to perfection.
So
I watched that race to perfection the other day. It was amazing. I don't know if you've
yeah.
seen it yet.
So
You must go on, you must go on to F1 TV and give it a watch. It's really good.
okay.
I really, really enjoyed it. I think I've still got 2 or 3 episodes left. Um, all right, let's move on to Aston Martin. I don't know what to say about Aston Martin, to be quite honest with you. I don't particularly think that they were off pace. I don't particularly think that they were off in general. I think Mercedes made a step forward, which made it look like they went backwards.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
mean, they got a solid 6 and 7. Um,
Mm-hmm.
personally, I'm very impressed with Stroll. Considering the critics that he got after
Okay.
criticism that he got after Monaco. He hit back
Yeah.
quite well. He didn't seem to be doing quite well in free practice, but in quali he pulled it through. And in the
Yeah.
race he did the best that he could with the car that he had. I don't think he could do more. You look at it and you're like, yeah, but why? You know, um, Alonso's had 5 podiums out of 6 races. Why couldn't he get a podium? Your second driver is supposed to pick up the pieces. But Mercedes took a step forward, and Ferrari hasn't been the worst car. Ferrari has been a good car. It's just that they have been getting everything else wrong around having a good enough car. Well, I say good car with a pinch of salt because it is good some days, and other days it's just a bit off. But we'll get into that just now as well. The point is that I don't think that Lance could have done much more. I think Fernando definitely was quicker, and obviously Fernando let him win essentially because he did come out at the end and say, "Listen, just tell George not to worry. I'll stick it out here and keep everybody." I don't know. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was definitely going to be able to pass Lance, but then he opted not to, which where Mr. Nice Guy 2023, Mr. Nice Guy Alonso. What? what I don't know where this is. I mean, this is. I mean, I'm not upset about it, but is Alonso being paid to drive, or is he being paid to groom? Because I've never in my life seen a driver so hungry to win in his previous life that when he's come into it now and all of a sudden he's like, oh no, don't worry, Stroll, you go ahead. I'll just stare into your gearbox for a little while. So it's a bit weird. I may be saying that as if I'm sour about it, but I'm just so confused. I'm like, this is Alonso we're talking about. Where is this coming from? So I have said this in a conversation before yesterday that I'm almost convinced that Alonso is being paid to groom Lance and not just to win. I genuinely think that that's on the contract. The contract probably said something like, you are to be grooming Lance for taking over as the first driver. I just have some kind of feeling that that is part of the contract, because I can't understand why he would just. I mean, this is Alonso we're talking about, right? Come on.
I mean, to be honest with you, yeah, you're right. It does look that way. But I'm also thinking that Alonso's so experienced in the sport is that he's playing the long game. In terms of the long game, we don't know what Aston Martin proposed to Alonso before he signed for the team. Leave his contract. But we don't know which goals that team sold Alonso. You understand? We don't know if Alonso is already thinking he could win a third championship before he retires.
Yeah.
How do we know how Aston Martin will be looking next season and the season after? You understand? Yeah. So that's why I'm saying he might be playing the long game where he knows the goals of the team. He knows they have a good car and it can only get better. I think Ferrari could learn something from there. But it's what he's doing. He's putting the work. He's creating an amazing chemistry, amazing environment in the team. Lance likes him. He likes Lance. Going to work now, it's fun. Racing is fun. And that's why they're having such a good season so far and all those results. You know? They've been in the points since the season started. Alonso. Not quite sure, but Alonso. So, I mean, you are right. There might be a clause in his contract stating that you have to mentor Stroll, but it's actually working because he's able to balance that out. He's still able to perform as a Formula One driver at the same time be a teacher, mentor to Stroll. So that's working. It's working fantastically. Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, look, they, like I said, they didn't do badly. I think Mercedes took a step forward, and the track suits Mercedes in general most days. So, I think they did the best that they could with the car that they had. So well done, Aston Martin. I can't really fault them for much. So, I don't know if you've got anything to add, but I'm happy to move on from Aston Martin.
Yeah, Aston Martin's starting to be like Red Bull as well now. Like, we have nothing to say about them. So
yeah, that's true. That is true.
To be honest with you. So,
okay, cool. So the next one we're going to talk about is the rest of the field.
Are you funny?
No, I'm not. Ferrari have now dropped. Ferrari have now dropped into the rest of the field. As you guys know, or those of you that have watched, you probably do know. Those of you that haven't watched us before, we only cover the top 4 teams, and then we do the rest of the field in terms of like any extra points that we like to cover. Ferrari's now dropped into the rest of the field. And now we're only doing the top 3 teams and the rest of the field. No, I'm joking. We are going to get to Ferrari, but I'm going to keep that for last. I feel like that's a juicy conversation to have. So I'm going to just put it out there that Zach was clearly at the race again this weekend, because McLaren obviously didn't score any points again. So after qualifying 3rd as well, which honestly was one of the best qualifying performances I've actually seen the entire season. one of the best qualifying sessions I've seen. Did I just say the same thing twice? But I meant it in two different ways. What I meant was one of the best qualifying sessions I've seen from a driver this entire season, which was Norris, and one of the best qualifying sessions I've seen in general, which, if you remember last week, we said the same thing.
Yeah, we did.
So second time in a row, qualifying was absolutely mental, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Norris did extremely well, but unfortunately in the race, he did not seem to sort of take shortcut George's sort of path through the forest. Because if he did, he probably could have ended up in front of Max, and then who knows what could have happened. You know what I mean? Could have maybe taken Max out. Lewis could have gone on to win. Payback for 2016. You never know. But in any case, it is what it is. So that's all I've got to say on Norris. I don't know if you want to add anything to McLaren or Norris. There's nothing much to say about McLaren, and I particularly do not want to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Brown, please do not attend races. But anyway,
Jeez,
yeah,
man.
total waste.
It's
Total waste. They looked amazing qualifying. I was shocked, to be honest with you. I'm sure they were hoping that it should get points for that qualifying session, especially from Norris. However, that happened, and back to square one, McLaren. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, it is very sad, but it is what it is. Moving on. We're not going to talk about Bottas at all because he was yet again absolutely dismal. But I am going to I'm going to talk about his friend Guan Yu Zhou as well.
Yeah.
Very, very good race.
Race.
Very, very good race. But I'm going to say this. I do not agree with Yuki's penalty, and I think Yuki should have beaten him in that race. I have looked at the onboards. I've looked at some things. Yuki could do nothing at that point. He could not. His hands were completely locked. He could do nothing else at that point. And they say that Zhou was ahead. And while at a point I think he was, I still kind of think, but, you know, as a driver, like, I get it. He was maybe slightly ahead. But on the guy on the inside, right, what is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to just stop completely and just let him go and then just, you know, that's dangerous as well, because what if you've got somebody behind you and you just suddenly stop? You know, I don't really understand. In the instance of that, I would say, you know, allow the driver to sort of go off the track, you know, exceed that track limit and sort of accept it. Don't penalize him for it. Just let it happen, you know. And obviously he mustn't overtake while doing that, but at least let him do it so that, you know, like, don't force him to go on the escape route is what I'm trying to say, you know, because now obviously Zhou's now obviously lost that time again, where if he had just stayed alongside, he could have maybe passed him again at the next turn or something, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense in any case. But all I'm saying is I don't particularly agree with the penalty. And I think Yuki himself had an amazing race, and I'm very upset that he didn't get points, because I think he really deserved points, and I think he did better than Zhou. So well done to both of them. Don't agree with the penalty. So I could have probably just said that in like one sentence. But obviously it's a podcast, so I had to give it a little bit of extra emphasis. I don't know if you've got anything you would like to add to that.
I mean, I totally agree with you as well. And what I highlighted is that they're saying he didn't give him space. And I'm like, but how though? If he was swerving, he was actually locked, actually trying to give him space. However, it's just when it was not enough space. So it's absolutely nothing he can do at that
There was
point.
enough space, but he couldn't turn anymore.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm thinking now, FIA didn't actually see that and logically think, oh, but he did give him space, so why are we giving him penalty? if he didn't give him space, that's another conversation.
Well,
And the
I
penalty
think,
should be rewarded then.
well,
Understand?
yeah. I mean, look, it's not FIA, it's the stewards. I think, like
Yeah,
FIA is
stewards,
the
yeah.
governing bodies.
Mm,
I think
yeah.
I think I understand what the stewards are saying, because the stewards are looking at the rule book and going, if Zhou was ahead at the turn, he owned that right to the racing line. But Yuki was on the racing line already. Where else was he supposed to go? He can't just stop. He can't just brake and pull out of that, because if somebody's behind him, they're going straight into him. That's not, you don't expect somebody on the racing line to just stop out of nowhere. And I mean, it's racing. I guess the people behind also need to watch out, and that's why they're F1 drivers. They've got reaction times, quick reaction times, and so on. But still, regardless of anything that I might say that contradicts what I believe, I feel like everything I say contradicts what I believe. But the point is, I don't think that Yuki deserved that penalty. I just don't. And it doesn't really. I do get what the stewards would. I do get the stewards a point. I just don't particularly agree with it. I think the stewards, they find it so difficult to do either or, where it's either black and white and they go by the book, or they go completely off the book, and they just make up their own nonsense. And I don't really understand. Like, they can't find a happy medium of just understanding that sometimes you need to sort of not be black and white, and sometimes you need to go a little bit more lenient, and sometimes you need to be a little bit more harsh. It all just depends on the situation at hand. While we're on the two, I would like to just point out that Yuki was in the top 10 for most of the race. And you've got to give him that props. And if you look at the timing sheets, the comparison between him and Zhou, he was consistently beating Zhou lap for lap. I say consistently. Obviously, there was laps in between where Zhou would pull it back a little bit, but if you look at the times, you're looking at, let's just go from lap 56, which is 10, the last 10 laps. And this is throughout from the start to end. In fact, from the start, it's Yuki, like the whole way. He's just been beating Zhou on lap by lap. But in the last 10 laps, when they were obviously in the heat of it, we've got Yuki by a second over 2 laps, and then Zhou pulled it back by 1 lap, but only by 9,000ths of a second. And then Yuki again by a 10th. Then Zhou pulled it back by 2/10, but then Yuki pulled it again back again by 4/10. So each time Yuki comes back with so much more or quicker times for over a couple laps, he was consistently faster than Zhou, just consistently faster than Zhou throughout the entire race. Yet he ended 12th and Zhou ended in the points. I just think that penalty was too harsh. And if you look at the way Yuki drove, he deserved those points. And I don't think he deserved the penalty. But that's all. That's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, no, spot on.
Cool. Right. Okay. So now let's get to the time that BT has been waiting all day for, to talk about the greatest team of all time, Ferrari, and emphasis on the greatest team of all time. Let's just put that out there. Right. Okay. So, I've got one thing to say here. First of all, I don't blame the drivers for whatever's going on. I've seen a lot of comments flying around. I see a lot of Ferrari fans talking about Leclerc's this and this and this and that and the next thing. First of all, Sainz, great race. Had an extremely good work rate. I love his mentality. His high IQ of thinking during a race. Very well done. He got to a point where he just accepted that he was going to be a sitting duck with his Mercs, and he started worrying about how they could beat Perez. And I think that was extremely, extremely good from him. What I found not extremely good is he said to the team, what do I need to do to beat Perez? And then the team responded by putting him on hards when Perez went onto softs. I'm not too sure what happened there, but if that was the answer, it was the wrong one.
Clearly.
Also, I found this quite cheeky. Science asked, what do they have to do to beat Perez? Martin Brundle said, hire Adrian Newey, which I thought was quite brilliant. But he's not wrong, though. He's not wrong. And this just brings me to the point of when does Ferrari decide? You know, Christian Horner, when he came in and his first point of order was to find the best of the best. His first point of order was management 101. Surround yourself with the people that can do the job better than you. He went and got Rob Marshall, Adrian Newey. You know, he got all of these big boys, these big players that have got massive CVs, and he brought them into the team and said, right, let's make some magic. And that's exactly what they did. They made magic. I mean, Red Bull didn't start that much long before they started winning championships. And even after they were winning championships with Vettel, they were still sort of in and around the front the entire time. And now they're back to winning again. Okay.
Yeah.
McLaren has finally started doing that now, where they've started bringing in, you know, they've gone and taken Rob Marshall now and David McKees and all of those type of guys. Is it David McKees or who's the one that went to AlphaTauri or the one went to AlphaTauri, the other one went to McLaren.
Alpine.
No, McLaren.
Oh, McLaren. Oh.
Anyways, it doesn't matter. The point is that McLaren are sort of starting to do that now. So when is it time for Ferrari to decide that they should probably start hiring some big guns to start getting that team right? Because I don't think hiring a team principal is enough. I think that team principal, by the way, I think Fred is good. I think he deserves to be there, and I think he's good for the job. But we don't know if the team holds him back from hiring others. We don't know that type of dynamic, what's happening there. But at the end of the day, what we do know is that whether it's Fred that needs to do that and make those calls, or whether it's Formula One, whether it's Ferrari that needs to make those calls, bringing in Fred to replace a failed Binotto is not the problem. And I think we're starting to see that Binotto wasn't the problem. So we've got to start looking at the idea of, when is Ferrari going to start making the changes that are needed to bring this team back? Instead of just changing the headmaster and hoping that would change things, when are they going to start changing the key players that will make this team go?
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's a good question. And you must remember now is that Ferrari is not ran like Red Bull or McLaren.
Yeah.
It's basically a family-owned business, and obviously they're going to run it the way that they run it and been run it for years. Yes, they've won previous years, but now obviously the sport has changed and things are different now than a few years ago. So
yeah,
I don't know what Fred is going to do in terms of trying to take control of that team.
Yeah.
But I think the best thing for Ferrari to do is to let Fred do his thing and give him 100% control and let him hire the people that he wants to hire. Because now it looks like Fred is not the person who's doing the hiring. It's the Ferrari family that's doing the hiring now. And maybe the few consultants they have within the family that helps them with running with the team and overall the business as well, the car business as well. So Ferrari it's a different animal to Red Bull, and we can't expect them to run their team the way that Red Bull does run that team. But we think that Red Bull has the recipe. Why not copy that and see where it goes? You know?
Yeah, man.
So I think that's the major problem they're facing at the moment, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Look, I mean, my situation now is that if you consider Leclerc, for example, you know, they're going to lose Leclerc, and what happens to them afterwards? Because who's going to replace him? You know, and you can see Leclerc is so demotivated. He is basically the Daniel Ricciardo of last year, where Daniel Ricciardo was looking so down and gloomy with McLaren. That's where Leclerc is now. and they're going to lose him. And it's not his fault. Okay, partly he has also brought his own fair share of letting the team down, but I think the team lets him down more than he's let the team down. And
Yeah.
they're going to lose him. They're going to lose him soon enough. And my question is, he doesn't have to care about what happens to Ferrari when he leaves, but what's going to happen? You know, Aston Martin comes along and says, okay, Fernando is retiring, Leclerc, pull in. Leclerc says, okay, cool, Aston Martin are fighting in the front, I'm in, let's go for it. He moves over to Aston Martin. What do Ferrari do? There's no driver currently now that can, there's no driver that you can link to Ferrari right now that can possibly take over from Leclerc. There just isn't. I mean, I've said this a couple of times in lives and so on, and some people do laugh at me. Fair enough. You're probably going to be one of them too, but it is the only thing that makes sense, right? The only person that can really jump into that seat now is Daniel Ricciardo. There's no other person that can possibly jump in that seat. And I know,
honest,
yeah.
And to be honest with you, Daniel Ricciardo and Ferrari, it doesn't sound good. To be honest, like it doesn't sound like.
I mean,
knowing
sounds
Ferrari,
good to me.
how they, no, you know Ferrari how they like marketing their brand and their team.
Yeah.
Daniel Ricciardo is not your typical Ferrari driver. Let's just put it out.
Yeah,
there.
he needs a good environment. He needs a fun environment.
Yeah, and I've seen in the tabloids where, I think 2 weeks ago, where they were saying that Ferrari has a 40 million. They can offer Lewis Hamilton 40 million a year. So I'm thinking now, instead of giving that money to Lewis Hamilton for him to join their team, how about hire people with that money? People
Exactly.
that can actually do that. You got the money, then why are you not hiring the people that's going to take the team forward? I understand.
100%. You know what? Looking at Leclerc's data this race, he wasn't far off. In fact, he was very similarly placed to Alonso, very similar place to Sainz himself. And Sainz had open air. He had to still get through traffic and so on. You know, so you're looking at that stats and you think you look at that data and you think, okay, you know, Leclerc's not wrong here. He's not the wrong. Something's gone wrong here strategically, and no, I don't think it's something we can pinpoint where it went wrong or how it went wrong. I can only assume in Sainz's situation, he was fighting in the front. Maybe it wasn't about strategy for him. Maybe it was just that they didn't have the pace. But in terms of Leclerc not being able to get into the points, that's a strategic error. So, he was on the same pace as Alonso and them. So I'm a little bit concerned there, but you know, as you and I have spoken about before, and we've seen this, if you look at the tire options, there's only 3 drivers that went on 2 stints on the hards, and 2 of those drivers were the last 2 drivers on the grid, which was Bottas and Sargent. So I don't know what I don't particularly know what Ferrari were thinking there. Again, I say I don't think Sainz was on the wrong strategy either. But at the same time, when Sainz says, "What do I have to do to not lose to Perez?" and then they put him onto the hards, like you could have done a second stint of mediums. Wait, let me just see the graphic quickly, because the graphic will show. So he had softs, mediums, hards. So he's already made his mandatory change, because now he's already done 2 different compounds. So he could have taken another medium, or even at this point, maybe even another soft. Obviously, we're not sure. To be honest, I don't know what the allocation is. It's quite possible that they didn't have another extra soft or another extra medium, but I'm sure they would have had an extra of either or. You know, surely they would have had an extra of one of them. I mean, here he's done less laps on the hards than he did on the medium. So why not just take 2 mediums then, if they had 2 mediums? Or he could have taken, surely they would have had an extra pair of softs or an extra pair of mediums. I don't know, man. I don't particularly. Yeah. To be fair, Perez did the same strategy as Sainz, but just the opposite way around. Medium hard, soft, and Sainz did soft, medium, hard. But I still think Ferrari could have done soft, medium, medium, or soft, medium, soft, I think there would have been enough laps to make it to the end, but then he might have been eking it out at the end a little bit too much, because they probably did also have a bit of degradation issues. So maybe the softs wouldn't have been a good opportunity,
Yeah.
a good choice, but a second mediums maybe. I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm not, I'm not the matter expert when it comes to this. That's their job. But it's easy for me to sit here on the couch and criticize, but from my sort of like limited knowledge of Formula One, compared to them, for example, I definitely think they should be making better decisions. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, Graham, it just didn't look right. And,
Yeah.
and it's okay for us to say it. I mean, if
Yeah.
you want to get points or you want to start overtaking people for you to get points,
Yeah.
surely Ferrari could, in terms of Leclerc, Ferrari
Yeah.
could be like, we can get 10th at least.
100%.
Let's put on the mediums, let him do
Yeah.
what he has to do. Push, basically.
I mean, he was
And that
doing
should take
good
him-
laps, even on the hards.
You see,
Yeah. Anyways,
I don't know, bro.
yeah,
I don't
I
know.
think let's not bore the people. The Ferrari fans might have gone to crawl in their holes already. So let's I mean, you are Ferrari fans, and you still here, so I hope the rest are still here. So let's move away from the sort of like depressing part of the podcast. We do apologize for that.
Yeah.
It is a bit of a tough one to swallow, but at the end of the day, it's a conversation that needs to be had, and questions that need to be asked. But anyways, let's move over to some more sort of interesting stuff, fun stuff. Moment of the weekend. So my moment of the weekend was Norris's qualifying performance, one of the better performances I've seen in qualifying from a single person in a long time. Obviously, we had last week Verstappen in Sector 3 in Monaco. But, let's be real. As good as it was, he was supposed to win. I mean, he was supposed to get pole. It's Max, it's Red Bull. Norris had no place. He had no right at all to be where he was at all. He had no place there. Yet he just decided, listen, today's my day. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him in the race, but moment of the weekend, Norris qualifying session. Well done. You go.
I mean, mine is short and simple. So Alonso's overtake. I can't remember who he was overtaking though. But it was near the pit exit, and he literally went to the side and nearly, I can't say nearly hit the barriers or anything like that, but the amount of space he was given, it was quite a gamble, and it was fantastic to watch.
It was Ocon.
Remember?
It was Ocon.
Ocon.
It was Ocon. Yes.
Yeah,
listen, I don't know what Ocon was doing. I don't know what Ocon was doing, but he was absolutely out of line. That I don't know how he didn't get a penalty for that. I'm not even gonna lie to you, because that was out of line. I mean, Alonso, he even squirmed a little bit on the grass. Did you see?
Bro,
yeah, no, that was a bit hectic, but that was good. That was brilliant. Okay, cool. Move over to blooper of the week. So my blooper of the week is, considering the conversation we've just had about Ferrari, I did not go that route. I thought that would be too easy. Except instead I went for Williams, which we haven't spoken about yet today. But I got to highlight the fact that they were completely dismal and absolutely nowhere to be found. I'm not even sure I saw them. So I'm not really sure if they were actually at the race. I don't really know. But all I know is they were completely dismal, and just nothing worked for them at all this weekend. I don't know if it's the track. I don't know if it's track specific. They obviously are a team that like the straights. They are pretty good in the straights and so on. And Spain doesn't really have loads of straights. No, long straights. I don't listen. It's getting late.
Not many long straights.
But you know what I mean. The point is, it could be track specific. Maybe I'm a bit harsh here on them. It is Williams after all. But considering they have surprised us this year in certain ways, they have done pretty badly. I mean, McLaren is also a shout for blooper of the week. So is Ferrari. But I'm going to stick with Williams because why not?
Yeah, I'm straight going for Ferrari. I mean, the Leclerc strategy. I'm not going to even try to hide it. It was
Yeah,
just
of
no.
course, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, fair
the
enough.
hard, soft, hard didn't make sense. So that's my
Leave it to the Ferrari fan
Last
to really kill Ferrari when he needs it.
Yeah, every opportunity.
You got to criticize
I
your own
get.
team. Anyways, let's move over to predictions. So, as you all know, we have our predictions. I say as you all know, I'm hoping that you don't all know because that would mean we have some new subscribers. And if you are new, please hit the subscribe button. Really, really appreciate that. Let's get into the predictions. For Spain, I went Alonso, Perez, and Sainz, which gives me a fat 0, which is the same amount of points that I got for Imola and Monaco. And we didn't even make our predictions for those two races. Sorry. So, point is, that's a complete L for me. And you went for Max, Alonso, and Sainz, which at least you got 2 points for Max. So you know that's pretty solid. I gotta say, if you win this championship, that's all fair. I get that. But I'm the one taking all the ballsy moves here. Okay. So let's just remember that. All right. Because you ain't putting Alonso first for an because man, sometimes just imagine the day I say Alonso, Max, and Stroll all on a podium. And I get it right. Imagine.
But we both know Alonso will win a race this season though. It's coming.
And we both know that Stroll is gonna get a podium this
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. So you get 2 and I get 0. Now we have Canada coming up, which is one of my favorite races, usually one of my favorite tracks as well to race on the old F1 game. We're gonna make our predictions for Canada. BT, you can go first.
Max, Perez, Hamilton.
Max, Perez, and Hamilton. Great stuff. Now, I like that choice. I would love to go for that choice because I think that is what's going to happen. But I'm not going to be boring because that just kind of defeats the object. I want to beat you. And if I just go with the same as you right now, I'm going to lose because you are ahead. I'm not going to say by how much, but you are ahead. I
am the prediction guru. Call me that, call me that.
Listen, I was literally beating you before Miami, so don't talk nonsense. Okay, so I'm gonna go with Max and Perez as well, but then I'm gonna go with Alonso. Okay. And the only reason why is because last year Alonso Alpine front row with Max. I'm talking in code. I don't know why. Point is, Alonso got a front row last year in that Alpine, so he obviously likes this track, and he's got a good car. I really hope that Mercedes are genuinely back, but I also hope that Aston Martin aren't far off, or they haven't dropped back. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think they're far off though. No, I don't think so. It's just was. Yeah, it's just a track.
No, but what I mean is that I do hope that Mercedes is back and that we'll have a good fight. But I hope that Aston Martin are still. I hope Aston Martin are still in that fight so that we can have a good fight. And that way, third is up for grabs for either Alonso or a Hamilton or a Leclerc. Who am I kidding?
Stop.
Anyways, okay, cool. Sorry. Okay. Anyways, that's the predictions over. That is the podcast done. I don't think there is much for me to say. Do you have anything you'd like to add, BT, before we leave these lovely people to go and sleep? Or work, or drive, whatever they're doing.
Ferrari, I am tired. Ferrari, I am tired. See you guys.
Cool, guys. Great, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. And we really, really, really wish you guys the best. Until Canada, we will see you soon. Have a great day, night, drive, whatever it is you're doing while you're listening to us. Cheers. Bye.